So, I want to discuss about the Aquarian sun sign. Yes, if you're born between January 21st to February 19th, then you belong to this particular sun sign. They are the water bearers. And you know what? Aquarians don't have the best memories in the world. But then they really don't need to memorize much, since they seem to pick up knowledge out of thin air with some kind of invisible antenna. So, why should they clutter their minds with information they may never need when they can reach out by osmosis and grasp just about anything they want? And Uranus illnesses, when I'm saying Uranus, I meant to say the Aquarius people. They are governed by this planet Uranus. So, Uranus illnesses are usually connected with the circulatory system. Aquarians shiver and shake in the winter and suffer with the humidity in the summer. They are susceptible to varicose veins and hardening of the arteries in old age. If their emotions are directed into negative channels, and they tend to have accidents to the legs, especially the shin and ankles. The ankle bones are often weak and there may be pains in the legs due to poor circulation, frequent sore throats, and sometimes heart palpitations. Uranians need lots of fresh air, sleep, and exercise, but they seldom take advantage of these remedies. They don't get much fresh air because they close their windows, pile on the blankets, and still complain that they are freezing. These people are extremely susceptible to hypnosis. Intuitively, lots of them sense this and won't expose themselves to it for love nor money. But this is a mistake because hypnotic suggestion from a good medical hypnotist could successfully remove their myriad phobias. The Uranus power of concentration can be awesome. Yet, they are also able to pick up things going on around and behind them when they choose, like a radar screen. They can carry on a complicated discussion and still not miss an inflection of what's happening in the other part of the room if they decide to tune in. Sometimes you could swear the Aquarian paid no attention to anything you said, but the next day he'll repeat it back to you like a tape recorder. Never underestimate the Uranian process of soaking up knowledge while they seem to be oblivious. What the Aquarian man or woman thinks is always a clue to tomorrow. The uncanny Uranus ability to plunge into the unknown and absorb mystical secrets without half trying leads to a peculiar sort of intuition which gives them a high degree of psychic precognition. I know one, who literally answers the phone before it rings. And what's more, he knows who's on the other end before a word is spoken. Yet, there's nothing superstitious about their thinking. A true scientist, even if he's a mechanic or a musician, the Uranian won't jump to a conclusion until it's passed the test of his keen mind. However, once he forms an opinion, it remains firmly fixed in his brain. And I do mean firmly. As strongly as he loves change in society and government. He won't change his own idea one iota for anybody. He's completely open minded about world progress, but his mind clamps shut when it involves his personal behavior, which can be unexpectedly conservative. You can see that his liberalism has its boundaries. Aquarians despise lying and cheating, and they avoid borrowing and lending. A broken promise or a bad debt can put a wide crack in your friendship. Aquarians keep their word and pay their bills, and they expect others to do the same. Aquarians get credit for being idealists, perhaps too much credit. For too much, this thing you could say idealism, it consists of blind faith and optimism. And the Uranian is too shrewd to fool himself with lost causes for long. He knows that most dreams are illusions, like the rainbow he has examined so closely and still loves. Tradition and authority leave him unimpressed. He'll politely respect them, but they won't stop his compulsive drive to uncover fallacies, distortions, and illogical assumptions. His mind and body must both be as free as the wind. To try to pin down the Aquarian is to try to stabilize the butterfly. It can't be done. And besides, who in the world would want to try? Though he's so far ahead of his time that you have trouble catching his viewpoint immediately, it's still worthwhile to make the attempt. You'll always come away a little wiser, if a little bewildered. His astrological flower is the daffodil, and now you know the derivation of the word daffy. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up next is the Aquarian Man. Please do subscribe and share. Thank you. Welcome everyone. The Aquarius Man. So if you're born between January 21st to February 19, you fall under this sign. The water bearer. Okay, so don't expect an Aquarian man to behave the way people in love are supposed to behave. If you do, you're in for quite a jolt. When it comes to friendship, he's all you could ask for. But love, well, as an Aquarian I once knew said, anybody can have a girl, but love is something else again. That was an astute observation. It's something else, all right, with Aquarians. It's when he acts as though he doesn't like you that he's close to being hooked. And the reason is elementary, simple logic. The Aquarian water bearer likes everybody. Everyone is his friend. He'll even refer to his worst enemy as my friend. So it means something when he says he doesn't like someone. Just what it means may take some time to study. The various nuances can be complicated. An Aquarian man doesn't want to reveal his true feelings, in spite of his favorite pastime of penetrating the feelings of others. His own reactions and motives are complex, and he intends to keep them that way for the pure pleasure of fooling you. To an Aquarian, everyone is special, and I mean everyone, even those he hasn't met yet. Few Uranus men are either selfish or petty. When he does show those qualities, A gentle reminder that he's being narrow minded will bring him around. Aquarians just can't stand to be called narrow minded. He responds to unusually high ideals thanks to his rigid moral code. He'll almost surely lead a life of change, controversy, and unexpected events. Yet, there will often be moments of perfect tranquility with him, impossible to find with any other sun sign. Forever analyzing, the Aquarian man will frequently ask himself, I wonder what she meant by that. He won't rest until he finds out either. A puzzle drives him simply wild, and don't be fooled by his nonchalance. When he senses something is hidden, he just won't sleep at night until he's unraveled the mystery and penetrated the veil. The girl who wants to land him eventually has first to intrigue him. An open book will never pick his curiosity. He's attracted to closed pages. The more tightly closed, the better to arouse his detective instinct. When a female either ignores him or keeps her own counsel, in the beginning at least, his eyes will open a little wider and he'll get an alert expression, amazingly like that of a bloodhound, on the scent of something missing. Why is she so emotional? Is she really so changeable or is it an act? Why does she wear all that perfume and makeup and such low-cut dresses and then get insulted when those Leos and Sagittarians and Scorpios whistle at her in front of the drugstore? Does she want meal advances or doesn't she? Is she a Puritan or promiscuous? What makes her tick? As he probes and questions and examines, the girl is at first flattered, naturally, but when she sees he's just as intently curious about the waitress who just served them, she begins to cool somewhat, feeling like an insect trapped under a scientist's cold eye isn't exactly calculated to cause the heart to flutter in any feminine bosom. So she finally drifts away to a more fiery or earthy male, and the Aquarian sadly sighs for an instant or two before he begins his next romantic investigation. Aquarian men can be touchingly gentle and docile, but you'd be better tie a bright blue electric string around your finger to remind you that his surface calmness is a mirage. He won't tolerate an ounce of opportunism from a female. And these Uranus men have a fetish for cleanliness because they always have this neurotic fear of germs and illness. Now let's face the worst fact courageously. No flinching or wishful thinking. Here it is. Unlike Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, and Libra, Aquarians don't take to marriage like a baby takes to candy. To be truthful, most of them avoid it as long as it's humanly possible. Aquarian makes beautiful, wonderful, glorious friendship the basis of the love. They choose a girl who's also a chum and who can keep up with Aquarian interests. Well, with so much to talk about, there's less time for lovemaking, which can get him seriously involved and committed. His ideal is the female who's his friend and who doesn't make heavy emotional demands on him. Where do we go from here? Nowhere, usually. Aquarian men find it difficult to relax in physical expressions of love. Even after he's mustered the courage to say, I love you, he'll avoid the issue of marriage with every excuse in the book. When those run out, he can think up some pretty imaginative new ones. He'll patiently explain that he can't support you in the manner you deserve. His parents need him at home, or he's not good enough for you. If that doesn't work, he'll claim that the future is too uncertain. What with the threats of nuclear destruction and all? What if your boss, sends him to Alaska next year? You might die of pneumonia up there, and he would be grief stricken the rest of his life. But all is not lost. Though it's true that most Aquarians wed late, they do eventually wed, usually. It normally happens after the last bachelor friend has sailed away to a Bermuda honeymoon, and the Aquarian wakes up to realize that here is a mystery other people have solved that he hasn't even investigated. Naturally, he can't stand that. So pop goes the proposal. Suddenly, of course. Uranus. Jealousy isn't his cup of eggnog. He'll trust you until you show him you can't be trusted. Not because he's trusting by nature, but because his analytical dissection has already satisfied him about your character. He will rarely, if ever, be physically unfaithful himself, mostly because the whole subject of sex, though it's interesting, doesn't consume him. Once an Aquarian has chosen a mate, he figures he can concentrate on more important things. He can relax and investigate the boy girl or man woman relationship at his own leisure in his own private laboratory. And moreover, he's capable of waiting until he's 90 to claim you, even if you feel that's a bit long to wait for consummation. The worst of it is that he'll never give a reason for the break. That's for him to know and you to find out. He may not be the best breadwinner around, but he's capable of inventing something beneficial to the world or being the first man to land on Mars. He'll feel right at home there too. Naturally, there are a few Uranian men who are wealthy, even millionaires, but a high income bracket is seldom a burning ambition. The children will find him the greatest listener on the block. He'll be fascinated at the perfect breath control of the wolf when he blew down the three little pigs' pad, and curious about how the old witch pickled the poisoned apple that put the whammy on Snow White. Don't let your career make you neglect to feed him or sew on his buttons. Don't encourage your girlfriends to camp on his couch or tie up the telephone for hours, and don't get engrossed in TV or a novel when he wants you to find his old softball in the attic or pull a splinter out of his finger. He married you for several reasons. Though romance may play its part, the most important reason was to have you around. So he would always have someone to mash his baked potato, cross stitch his buttonholes, find his lost articles, and operate on an occasional splinter. So you see, and moreover, these people can be so realistic about most things, and they would never forget their first love. And of course, we finally end up by saying jingle bells on the seashore, birthdays at dawn, Valentine's Day on Halloween, rainbows at midnight. Pin a red heart on an orange pumpkin, roll Easter eggs in the snow, light the candles on the cake on top of a Ferris wheel. You are in love with an Aquarian. Didn't you know? I wish you a frank, merry ending. But be careful, you can get lost out there in Wonderland. Thank you so much for listening. Do subscribe and share.